Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be creating a waterfront villa in The Sims 4 and we're going to be building it within Sulani because I just really like the variations of size lots that we have in this world. And speaking of size lots, we're going to be working on a 30 by 20 lot today, and we're just going to try to make something that looks super luxurious and modern, and we're trying to go for a more of a futuristic vibe in the sense that like it just has these nice minimalistic designs going across the entire build. And I hope you guys do enjoy and end up using this build as much as possible because I just had so much fun creating it. It just felt unique and different. It's kind of inspired by previous builds that I've created on the channel, but it's kind of just like a little bit of a different version of that, if that makes sense. So yeah, so we're going to be creating the very huge foundational platform that we have going on right now, and we're just going to be pretty much working off of that. So we have like a nice simple basic rectangular shape, and I wanted to go with a curved pool right off to the side where we have the water. I feel like that kind of gave it like a nice futuristic feature in itself. And in case you guys are wondering, I was able to use the pool tool on an Oceanfront lot by using the pool mod which came from Twisted Mexi. So shout out to that mod. If you guys are interested in downloading this build and getting like an exact one-to-one replica, you guys definitely would need to have that mod installed if you guys want to make sure that the pool works completely fine. However, if you guys don't have any mods installed, or if you guys don't plan to, you guys can pretty much like replace all of that small little place to be some like additional decking and just add some nice small little seating areas here and there. But yeah, so I just wanted to create something like this because I feel like I was kind of inspired by my previous build that I created. If you guys haven't seen it, I highly recommend you guys check it out, which is kind of like this huge getaway sort of resort style fitness center that I ended up building in Gibby Point, and that kind of motivated me to create another one of these like futuristic waterfront villa lots. And I just really love the overall sort of like modern vibe that they give off. I just really enjoy creating these type of builds in The Sims 4, and right now you guys can pretty much get a general idea of what the shaping of the overall build looks like. I didn't actually notice this as I was building it, but it kind of has like this huge H shaped design on the roofing part of it, and I still feel like it turned out super nicely and is relatively spacious, but it still is quite compact at the same time. I feel like that will make a lot more sense as we progress throughout the entire build. But I pretty much ended up placing these floating platforms towards the outer bit where we have the waterfront area of this build, and the way I was able to do that was by creating a room and then building another room on top of that and then lowering that second floor as if it was on the first floor, if that makes sense. And I do actually get quite a lot of questions asking me how I'm able to do that sort of design, and that is exactly how I just mentioned it like a few moments ago. And it will pretty much like act as a floating area, and I feel like that is a very nice and neat look, especially since a lot of the stilts that come from the foundations are quite repetitive, and I feel like it kind of might draw your eyes in a little bit too much. So instead of just like using the default options that we have in The Sims 4, I kind of like going for a nice unique creative way. And we also expanded on one of the sides of the build to house this sort of boxy shape, and that is actually where we're going to have a very huge glass indoor gym area. And I feel like it just looked super cool, just overlooking that nice bright blue crystal clear water. It just felt super cool and unique. I also ended up adding some of these small little skylights on the ceilings as well for the second floor, and in case you guys are wondering, those small little glass panels did come from the Island Living expansion pack. And yeah, I just placed them around where I thought would be best, and they actually work super nicely with the rooms that I ended up going for throughout this entire build. And we do actually end up having about 4 bedrooms on the second floor, including the nursery. So I feel like you definitely do have plenty of space to just like navigate and move around, especially with like if you guys are planning to add some extra little additions here and there for the exterior. I feel like it is definitely a nice modular sort of design and can definitely be moved about quite a bit. And right above where we have this indoor gym area, I wanted to have a nice glass house display for the roofing part of it. And the best way I thought about doing that was by placing this small little gabled roof, and I just ended up using a glass texture on top of it, and I feel like that definitely looked a lot nicer than just like placing a bunch of these like flat glass pieces like the ones that I placed on the second floor. I just feel like it gave it a little bit more definition, especially since it was on that first floor. And I ended up going for these floor to ceiling base game glass windows, or I guess these like wallpaper options. I just really love the overall look that they give, and I've kind of been enjoying using them quite a lot ever since they actually got released, because I feel like they're definitely very versatile and can be used in a lot of different ways. As you guys can currently see right now, it just makes the build come alive and makes it feel very modern, as opposed to using the regular window tools that we have in the game currently. And especially since it is base game, I feel like everyone is able to use it, so it's kind of like a win-win in my opinion. And yeah, so I also tried to add a small outdoor barbecue area off to the other side of the build, where we have those little gap bits in between the actual roofing area. of that flat roof, and I feel like that was kind of like a nice unique way of just like creating a modern design over there. It's kind of like inspired by a gazebo style design, and you might have noticed that a few moments ago I tried to experiment with a few gabled roofs or like some half roofs, just like putting it down all the way to the actual ground and like trying to add like stilts into it and stuff like that, but I just feel like it didn't really work out with the current design that I was trying to go for, because I was trying to go for something that looked a lot more modern and sleek, and that definitely wasn't really working out well with it. And for the wallpaper itself, I ended up going for the Adventure Awaits wooden paneling. So these small little corners here and there that we have throughout the entire build have this nice beige slash white wooden paneling, and I really love the overall look and design that it gives. And the main color scheme that we do have throughout this entire build, as you guys can clearly see, is this nice simple plain white color. For the exterior, we did actually end up going for a very simple looking white wallpaper texture. However, this does actually end up changing to a base game one that has a little bit more details and textures on top of it, so it looks a little bit more rundown and a bit more realistic in my opinion. And I feel like it kind of makes a lot more sense, especially since we're on a oceanfront lot. I wouldn't really expect like plain clear white walls, but more so something that resembles a bit more of like a rocky texture, if that makes sense. And yeah, so just added a bunch of different little fence pieces here and there as well. I ended up going for the ones that came from the businesses and hobbies expansion pack, mainly because I just feel like they look super simple and minimalistic, to the point where they work a lot better than the ones that are fully glass that came from the Get Together expansion pack, if I remember that correctly. They just look a little bit more sleek in my opinion, and it blends in a lot more nicely with the build that I'm trying to go for. And since I was super happy with the overall shape that I had going on currently and the window placements and stuff like that, I ended up moving on to adding some of the smaller foliage pieces throughout the entire build, such as the palm trees that we have a few scattered across the sandy pits of the actual area of the build. But besides that, we don't actually add a bunch of different small little like greenery details and stuff like that in the ocean, because I wanted it to look really nice and clear. I just ended up adding some of these black sort of grayish pebbles and rocks around the actual decking area. And the main reason for that was because I wanted it to feel as if it was being held up by those small rock sections rather than it being like floating away, if that makes sense. And I also just added a few of those throughout the swimming pool area itself as well, just trying to cover up the base of the actual perimeter for the build, because I wanted it to actually look like as it was actually built in, rather than just like making it seem as if it was like placed on top of the water itself. And I ended up going with a bunch of these specific island living objects throughout the entire build as well, as you guys can already see with the palm trees, along with the huge batches of greenery that we have scattered along certain parts of the build. In case you guys are wondering, those huge green grass patches did come from the Island Living expansion pack as well. I just feel like it looks the most luscious, and it of course fits the environment that we're currently in. And I also ended up using these spotlights scattered across the entire exterior of the build as well. I pretty much lowered it to its smaller size and placed it in all of the corners or in specific areas that I thought was kind of like making sense, especially since I wanted it to really look very visually appealing in the nighttime as well as like in the daytime and stuff like that, just like trying to make it feel as realistic as possible. And the best I was able to do that was by like placing it in certain areas that I felt was kind of necessary to just emit as much light as possible, since I didn't actually use a lot of wall sconces and stuff like that for the exterior. So we don't actually have a lot of wall lighting, but rather just like floor lamps and stuff like that, which I feel like looks very futuristic and modern in itself. And I also placed some of them on top of the decking itself, so just like trying to make it sure that I just added a bit more extra details. And we have this small little other decking area on the other side that is kind of like this small little cube area, and I just added some small little seating areas here and there, along with like a nice simple fire pit. And you might have noticed that I added one of these swimming pool ladders off to the side, and that is actually not functional, but rather just something for show, because I wanted it to look as visually appealing. But unfortunately, I couldn't really get that to actually work, so I just ended up keeping that as it was. I tried to use a different ladder as well, like the tall one, but I don't think that one works either, because it wasn't working in my previous build when I was building on the oceanfront. So yeah, I feel like it just probably wouldn't really work out super nicely here either. But yeah, so just added a bunch of different small little plant and foliage pieces here and there as well. And we're finally moving on into adding the actual furniture pieces for the outdoors. So we're starting off with the outdoor kitchen area, where I just housed a small little barbecue area where we have have this covered up roof area. And I ended up adding a small little fridge there as well, along with these base game counters, which just look super modern with the marble countertops. I just really love the overall look and design of them. And yeah, we kind of just went for a neutral tones throughout this entire outdoor area. I didn't really use a lot of color, especially since I just wanted it to match with the rest of the color scheme that we have going across this entire house currently. And you might have noticed that we actually placed quite a few columns here and there as well, with the ones that came from the Eco Lifestyle expansion pack that kind of looks like these metal columns. We do actually end up getting rid of a few of them because I feel like it just stood out a little bit too much for my liking. But yeah, so I also placed a small little outdoor seating area here as well, just like facing the ocean view, because I feel like it would be a nice realistic touch to have something like that. But yeah, so just added some small little clutter pieces on top of the table itself as well. And I ended up using some small little tricks here and there, such as placing the clutter pieces on top of a shelving unit piece that was on the same height as the table, and just like moving it over to ensure they actually slotted properly. And that is like the best way I was able to do it, by just like trying to add as much clutter onto the table as possible. And I feel like it turned out super nicely overall. But yeah, so moving on into the interior now, we're starting off with the kitchen, and I kind of just went with like a nice small simple little floor plan throughout this entire build. You will kind of just like make a lot more sense as we progress throughout the entire build. But we're starting off with the kitchen area, and I decided to go for this nice plain white design, once again just using the base game counters for the main areas of the kitchen, because I just really love that marble countertop design that it has, and it definitely works with a modern build like this. And for the small island counters that we have in the center of this kitchen area, we ended up going for the island living counters, mainly because I just really love the overall waterfall effect that it has on the edges of the countertop itself. It just makes it feel a little bit more clean and neat looking, and it kind of just like aligns with the rest of the design that we're trying to go for. And yeah, just ended up picking out a few small little shelving unit pieces here and there. I tried to get a small little design into the kitchen area itself because I wanted to ensure that it looked unique from the rest of the kitchens that I tend to create, but I just ended up going for a nice small little shelf design, especially since we don't actually have quite a lot of space to work with. But I just wanted to make sure it looked as visually appealing as possible while also maintaining that functionality. So yeah, just ensured that I included as much of the necessary kitchen clutter objects as much as possible. And we do actually end up housing a small little coffee station off to the side of the kitchen area as well as we progress throughout the entire build. But yeah, just added the small little sink on the island counter itself, and of course these small little alarms here and there. And this is pretty much where we add that small coffee table station. It's kind of like right off to the side. I feel like this build can definitely be used as a vacation lot, a rental, a getaway, as well as like a nice simple residential lot as well, because it pretty much houses everything that you would probably expect within a regular residential build, but it's just like placed on top of like a waterfront view. And I just really love that about it, to be honest. And yeah, just added some small little clutter pieces on top of the island counter itself as well, some small little plants and fruit bowls and vases, as well as like some nice simple plates on top of the shelving units themselves. And I ended up going for this small little plant vase that actually came from the Adventure Weights expansion pack. I feel like although not a lot of the objects from that pack are very nice, I still feel like I like certain aspects of it. But yeah, so we also have this small entrance table off to the side as well, because I feel like I couldn't really place it right opposite where we had the entrance of the door, mainly because we have the staircase there. So I just ended up adding it to the side, and I feel like it still worked out pretty nicely, especially with all of these small little details that we added along it and around it. And of course I do actually make sure to go back to the kitchen area as well as like other areas of the build, and I just made sure to add some small little accent wall pieces here and there as well, because I feel like it definitely does help with adding a bit of color to this build, especially since most of the color either comes from the accent walls themselves or the individual item pieces that come from the main object itself. And yeah, just added a small little living space off to the side of this build as well. And where we have the exterior of this actual build, we actually end up using these very tall single doors, which actually came from the Businesses and Hobbies expansion pack, and I ended up using it in this plain white wooden frame swatch. And I really love the overall design that it gives, because it kind of looks like a medium height glass window, but it is pretty much like a complete functional door, and I really love the overall look and design of them. And in case you guys are wondering, the entrance table that I ended up using did also come from the Businesses and Hobbies expansion pack as well. I feel like I kind of felt necessary to just like mention where few objects come from when it comes to like packs and stuff like that, because I feel like it definitely is very helpful when it comes to understanding where certain objects might come from throughout the entire game. And while I was looking through a few light on wall sconces, I actually noticed that I wanted to have a few accent lighting fixtures throughout the entire build. So for the main exterior, as I mentioned a few moments ago, we had the spotlights spanning across the entire perimeter of the build, but I do end up also using these nice candle wicker baskets scattered across this entire build as well, because I really love the overall look of them. I feel like it definitely matches that modern vibe and aesthetic that I tried to go for. And of course added some small accent wall light sconces and fixtures across the living spaces, such as the dining table area and the actual living space itself. And for the main primary bathroom suite area, I ended up going for some of my favorite bathroom objects, such as the bathtub that came from the Business and Hobbies expansion pack, the toilet that came from Snowy Escape, and the sink unit area that actually came from the Dream Home Decorator game pack. And I did actually use quite a lot of objects from the Dream Home Decorator game pack, mainly because I feel like a lot of people definitely do own that pack, and I feel like it is very versatile and usable in a lot of my build cases. So I feel like it kind of makes sense to just use that as much as possible to ensure that anyone who downloads my builds can at least get like 90% of the objects I ended up placing within the build, if that makes sense. Because I feel like a lot of people definitely do prefer that when I don't use a lot of different like packs and stuff like that throughout my entire builds. But yeah, so here is where we have that at-home gym area off to the side of the build. I really love how it turned out, especially since we have that almost 360 view of the ocean. I just really love the overall look and design of this gym area. It just feels super realistic, especially with a modern design like this. And yeah, just try to incorporate all of the necessary gym equipment as much as possible, as well as like some small little clutter pieces here and there as well. Just like trying to make it feel as complete and appropriate to a at-home gym as it possibly could be. But yeah, so we're finally moving on into the second floor now, and we're starting off with the primary bedroom suite, which we have in the center of the build. And initially I went with a very monochromatic design. I'm not sure why, but I feel like it would have looked nice in the end. But I feel like I noticed eventually that we were working with quite a small room, to the point where I felt like it wouldn't really fit all of the necessary objects that I was kind of expecting to place initially, such as like some nice small little seating areas and stuff like that. So we do actually end up changing the design quite a bit, but I actually really love the overall layout of this bedroom in itself currently. And I also ended up using these nice unique looking wall sconces on either side of the room. And if you guys haven't seen my previous builds, this is kind of like a simple design that I love creating, where I create this very long looking bedside table design just by using the Dream Home Decorator modular kitchen cabinet wall pieces in the finished version and just placing it right behind where we have the bed. And I feel like it kind of gives it a very nice and modern sleek design. But we do actually end up changing that because I kind of wanted to house a little bit more objects into this room, and I didn't really take that into account as I was placing that initially. But yeah, I did also end up using quite a lot of curtains throughout this entire build as well, especially since we do have a lot of glass windows scattered across this entire build. I feel like it only made sense to just include as many as possible. And usually I don't tend to use a lot of curtains, especially since I feel like it might, you know, disrupt a bit of the lighting and stuff like that here and there. But since we had quite a lot of natural light flowing throughout all of the rooms, I didn't really mind adding any of these like curtains throughout the entire build, especially since the ones that came from the Desert Luxe kit, they kind of look relatively sheer, so they don't actually like cover a lot of the lighting, which I feel like is super helpful for a modern build like this. But yeah, just added a nice little accent wall here and there, as well as adding a nice simple pendant lighting, as well as adding some nice unique paintings above the bed itself, as well as changing the colors up as well, because I didn't want it to look very monochromatic, but just add a bit of pop of color from here and there from the objects that I ended up using. And we're moving on into the ensuite that we have for the primary bedroom suite. And once again, just going for one of my favorite designs when it comes to these huge bathrooms, which is where I pretty much use these kitchen cabinet pieces, the thin versions, right along where we have the floating sink unit as well. And I feel like it kind of gives it like a nice unique floating vanity design. And I feel like I pretty much always try to go for a design like this in more of my modern builds. I feel like it just fits the vibe that I'm trying to go for, especially with this nice muted beige color. I feel like it definitely fits the rest of the color schemes that we have going on as well. And of course, making sure to add a small few clutter pieces here and there as well, just like to make it feel as complete and realistic to a bathroom as it could be. And once again, just adding this very luxurious bathtub almost in the center of where we have those huge glass windows. And I just really love the overall look and feel of that sort of layout and design. Although it might seem a bit like privacy invasive, I still feel like it looks super sleek and luxurious, just like placing a huge bathtub like that right where we have these very revealing glass windows. And I also decided to add a nice simple shower head off to the side as well, because I feel like since we have quite a lot of space to work with, I didn't mind including as many of the bathroom objects as possible that we currently have in the game. And yeah, just added a small simple toilet off to the side as well, once again just using the exact same one that came from Snowy Escape, because I feel like that one is one of the more futuristic looking ones and is kind of like fitting that more modern and expensive vibe that I was trying to go off of. And yeah, just added some small bathroom related clutter objects throughout the rest of the room, and I feel like it kind of felt very complete, especially with that nice textured tiling accent wall that we have on the sink unit area. But yeah, so we're finally moving on into the nursery area, and right in between where we have the nursery and the primary bedroom bathroom, we actually have another bedroom right in the center that I didn't end up showing in the speed build, especially since I just wanted to save you guys time. However, if you guys are interested in seeing it, I highly recommend you guys stick around towards the end of the video so you guys can check out the tour, which pretty much goes throughout the entire build and just like showcases all of the rooms individually. But yeah, so for this nursery, I sort of went for a more unique design than I usually do for my nurseries, which is where I place this nice little nursery crib right in the center of the room. And I feel like it kind of just gave some nice extra additional space to walk around the actual cot itself. And I just added some small little nursery related clutter throughout the entire room, such as the dressing table as well as a small little wardrobe area. So instead of using the walk-in wardrobe modular pieces and hanging some kid clothes on top of it like I usually do, I ended up going for a smaller little wardrobe piece, and I feel like it actually felt a little bit more fitting for this small little room. And especially since that nursery crib was kind of taking up a little bit too much space while it was in the center, I ended up moving it just a little bit off to the window area, just to ensure that I was able to add a few more clutter pieces as well as like some other kid related objects such as a toy treasure chest and stuff like that, just like trying to make it feel as complete as possible so that you guys don't have any missing objects throughout your entire build. And yeah, of course, ended up changing the wallpaper as well for the bedroom, because I feel like it feels a little bit more fitting to add something that feels a little bit more childlike, or just something that has a bit of like a nice simple pattern to it. It always just feels a little bit more complete and fitting for a nursery like this. And of course, adding a small little details here and there, such as the rocking chair as well as the bookshelf, and some small clutter related objects on the wallpaper itself as well. But yeah, so we're finally moving on into the last bedroom that we have for this waterfront villa, which I believe is pretty much one of the biggest rooms that we have throughout this entire build. I feel like this one could pretty much be considered the primary bedroom suite. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, because I feel like this one actually feels a lot more bigger than the other one, and I just really like the overall design and look that we ended up going for. It feels a little bit more minimalistic and down to earth. However, I still feel like with all of the objects I ended up using, I feel like it definitely feels very complete and lively. So it's not like a plain white build throughout. It's pretty much like has a few little accent pieces here and there that does actually make it feel a little bit more lively, to be honest. And of course, added some small little seating areas off to the side where we have those huge windows. It just feels fitting to just add something that overlooks the nice simple views that you have from this build. And of course, added some small little details here and there, such as a tiny walk-in wardrobe area off to the side where we have the fireplace. And if you guys want to have some additional space, you guys can obviously remove that very huge fireplace and just like change it up and just like add a small desk unit area. And once again, just adding these modern looking wall mirrors off to the side where we have the entrance and the exit for the bedroom itself. And yeah, just added a nice little pendant lighting right off into the center of the room. And I also ended up changing some of the accent walls that we have within this bedroom itself as well, because I feel like it was looking a little bit too plain and simple. So I ended up changing up a little bit and just adding some nice little details here and there. But yeah, we're finally moving on into the ensuite for this bedroom, and we kind of just went with like these similar designs that I tend to go for these modern bathrooms, just changing up a little bit with certain objects I ended up using, such as the sinks pretty much being different in all of the bedrooms and the actual bathrooms themselves. And we do actually have a public bathroom on the second floor as well as the first floor as well. So in total, we pretty much have like 3 or 4 bathrooms throughout this entire build, which I feel like is pretty much enough for a small build like this. And yeah, just went with like a nice simple modern design, once again using these nice modern looking tiles for the wallpaper itself. But I then pretty much went around the entire build and just added a small little few details here and there throughout the corridors and stuff like that. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this entire speed build. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think by leaving a like and subscribing, and comment down below your thoughts and suggestions. I'd love to know in the comment sections below what you guys think about this build. And I do also have a bunch more videos like this on the channel if you guys are interested in builds like these. So thank you so much again for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.